Thank you everyone for being here. I'm super happy to be having this opportunity to talk and to share a little bit of the knowledge that I have with microfrontends. And actually, my goal today is to make this session fun. So hopefully we have fun listening to this session, and also hopefully we don't see time passing by. That would be so great. So it's going to be 30 minutes, but yes, in the end, if it's when it ends, everybody's like surprised that it's finished. I will be super happy. Like I said, I'm going to be talking about DBT and microfrontends, and actually, it's more like the plan today is that we're going to talk about microfrontends in a little bit more detail, in a little bit more practical way, so you can see a microfrontend in action, so you can kind of understand it a little bit better. And then as I talk, and then as I show a microfrontend, hopefully you're going to make this connection to DBT and thinking, oh my gosh, actually this microfrontend thing, it's really connected. It's really a way to express, DBT. And my goal, my plan for that is that I'm going to follow this little agenda here, which very creatively I said it's going to be a WWW agenda. You see what I did there? So the first W stands for why. So we're going to start by talking about why you should even care, to listen to what I have to say. So why should you bother? That's my goal. Then we're going to be talking about the what. So actually, what is a microfrontend? We're going to go into a little bit more details to explain what it is. And most of all, I just want to demystify it. It's not something huge. It's not something complex. It's just a way of thinking and a way of organizing your code. And then we jump to the wow. And this wow session is like, now that you know the why and that you kind of know the what. The wow is that moment that it's like it needs to click. I show you something that you say, okay, now I got it. So that's the wow. That's the idea of what we have today. But before I start talking about the topic itself, I just wanted to make a little introduction about myself. You might be wondering, who is this Matheus guy? What does he do? What does he like? So Matheus who? And actually, I have some fun facts about me. First of all, I am Matheus. I'm from Brazil, although I live in Munich. And I am a human being, believe it or not. So I do things outside tech. I do have my own life as well. And I wanted to make this as human as possible. So I have some curious facts that I really wanted to put here. For example, Aladdin is my favorite movie. I don't know why, but I really watched it 50 times for some reason. Another thing is I have created 2 startups from scratch, and which I'm actually very proud of because, it just made me feel very capable of doing stuff. When you have this idea on a blank piece of paper, and then you have to, create a product out of this, and then you have to create a company out of this. I had this experience twice, and it's really awesome. I love front-end development, as I think you might have guessed by now, hopefully. I'm a PC gamer. So if you like PC games, shout out to all the PC gamers out there. If you want to talk about PC gaming, I know 1 or 2 things about it. Last game I played was Red Dead Redemption 2. Super good game. I really, really liked it. And I have worked for big companies like PubSubsystem, like Microsoft, like IBM. So like those companies with a lot of people, a lot of processes and stuff like that. And I also know the complete opposite side of the spectrum, where I worked for a startup with 2 guys. So there are no process at all. Like things are super fast until eventually things just go super wrong because you have nothing, so I know a little bit about, both sides. And then last but not least, before we really start the talk, I think I smile at least 100 times per day. And that's not a joke as well. If you count, I did the little math, that would be like once every 10 minutes. Which means that during this talk, I'm going to smile at least 3 times, but probably more because I'm super happy to be here. So yeah, there is that. Now, why should you even care about what I have to say now that you know me and now that you feel a little bit more comfortable? Well, it starts with a puzzle. So like a real puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle. When I was thinking about the talk 1.5 months ago, I was trying to make some analogies in my mind. I know that I was going to talk about micro frontends, but I wanted to make it easier to understand. So then I was just looking for some analogies, and then this just popped up, this little image here. I just know I was assembling a puzzle with my wife, so I saw this and I said, oh my goodness, I have to take a photo of this right now, of this moment, because it describes a micro front end. You must be like, what? What do you mean? All right, let me explain. So the way that we were assembling this puzzle was that naturally I was just doing what I do, following my wife's orders. And what she did, and eventually me as well, is that we started to cluster the pieces that were related to each other next to each other. So, we are assembling this puzzle. There are 1,500 pieces, and then we just separate the pieces that kind of make sense to be together, and then just put them close to each other. Why? Because, well, of course, that if I'm trying to build the mountain part right now, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I hope it's not too annoying. But if I'm trying to assemble this piece right now, I don't want to have to look at the entire puzzle box to find it. If it's isolated, and that's the keyword right here, right now, if it's isolated, then it's just easier to grasp and just easier to find what I'm looking for. And so we did like this. So we've isolated the mountain pieces right here. We've isolated the river pieces right here, the blue pieces. And I've isolated some of the rocks right here. Those like on silver-ish pictures. And if you have some OCD, there's something super annoying here. There's this piece that is actually missing right here. I didn't see it until today when I was doing some sort of rehearsal. I was like, this is super annoying. But yeah, but you might be asking now, but did that work? Like, how did it go? Of course it did work, or else I wouldn't put in the presentation. So in the end, we had this nice puzzle of beautiful Austria with the mountains and the rivers and whatnot. So super cool stuff. And then how does this actually relate to the way we build software today, especially in the front end? If you know this, please bear with me a little bit. I just want to try to build the foundation, like a solid foundation that we are all on the same level. Then we can just talk more and dive deeper, all right? So the current way that we actually build software is that we have what we call a monolith in front end. And again, generally, what is a monolith? So a monolith is like the puzzle box. It's like you have a single product, a single project. And like the puzzle box, every piece is inside of the same box. But of course, we're not dumb, right? We try to organize our stuff so it's easier to reason about. So the way we do is that we actually separate the pieces. Again, I'm going to use the puzzle box analogy. So we separate the pieces, in different, they are related to each other together, but they are still in the same box. They are separated, so we create things like components, controllers, services, what have you, but they are still in the same box. And the side effect that we have by that is that if I'm going to change something, and now I'm going to go talk about product a little bit. If I have a button, for example, it's a silly example, but yeah, it's my talk, so I'm going to do my silly examples. If I have a button, a green button, for example, and then our research told us that actually users they like more a blue button. Super silly, right? I can go to this box. I can find the green button there easily because it's kind of well separated. But in order for me to deploy my change, so I do the change quite quickly. But in order for me to deploy my change to the wild, actually I have to deploy the entire thing because they are coupled together. It's a big chunk. It's a big piece. And then there's a very interesting part to this if you think about it. Now what we have is that our release cycle and our ability to deliver, our time to market, our response time is tied not to the change that we are making, but rather to how big our product is. Because the bigger the product, naturally, the harder it will be to release things in a rapid cycle because there are a lot of dependencies and things like that. And that's actually very powerful. So don't we want, as product builders, don't we want actually our products to grow? They get more features, they get more evolved. So we all want that. But isn't this some sort of like paradox where I want my product to grow. I want a bit fast. Like I want to have a fast response time, but at the same time, when it grows, it stops me from being fast because it's too big. You know. So that's where Micro-frontend comes in handy. And now enough with the analogy. Let's look at a Micro-frontend kind of. So here what we have is a Micro-frontend. So think of it like this. We have one thing. We have this layer here that basically holds all the apps together. They are called micro apps. So we have a layer holding all the micro apps together. And this thing on the background is what we called an app shell, or it may also be called a composition layer or a stitching layer, assembly layer. It doesn't matter. I'm going to call it an app shell right now, from now on, so just so it's easier. So the app shell is basically a shell for the apps. So you have a shell, and then you have micro apps. And those micro apps, they are independent. That's the strong part of this. They are apps, but they are independent, and they have their own release cycles. So then I could, in theory, release this app here, for example, independently, then this one and this one. And because they are independent, there are some cool side effects to it that people tend to talk a lot about as a cool feature, but it's nothing more than a cool side effect. It's not what Micro-frontend is about, and it's not what Micro-frontend should be about. But it's a cool side effect anyways, which is that because they are independent, we can have here, for example, a vanilla JS app. Here we can have just a JavaScript app. And here we can have a React app, for example, which is also a JavaScript app. Yes, of course. And in this organization here, this way that we organize is what we call a vertical split, where basically you have multiple apps on the same page. But you could also have a horizontal split where basically maybe you have one page with just one app, which turns to be a Vue app. It can be a Vue app, like in this example here. And then you can have another horizontal split where app 3 is also just a separated app. An app shell is basically just responsible for calling the right apps when the user clicks on the right links and just stitching everything together. And like I said, that's only an architectural pattern. Some of the myths is that some people think that app shell and Micro-frontends is some sort of pattern. It's like some sort of npm library that I install, npm install Micro-frontend, import Micro-frontend. And it's not that. It's just a way of thinking of your code, a way of organizing your code, and a way of organizing your teams as well. That's all there is to it. It's not even about being server-side rendered or client-side rendered or even edge-side rendered, which is like it renders in the CDN. The CDN does the kind of the magic behind it. It's not that. It's just a way of thinking. And if you're following these guidelines, you could render whatever you want to, whenever you want to render. Simple as that. All right. But if you're like me, and excuse me, I'm just going to drink some water right now. So if you are like me, you have to see it to believe it. So I'm the kind of person that's, like I said, I can study, I can see stuff, but when I actually see it in action, it's like when it clicks. That's the wow factor. And well, if you have to see it to believe it, that's actually really cool, because what you're looking at right now, if I just, it looks like a PowerPoint presentation, but if I just show the browser here, you'll see that we are actually in the browser. So this is running the browser. So this is a website. Okay, that's cool. But however, this website is a Micro-frontend on itself. It's an app shell on itself. So since what we are now on slide 9, so actually you have been looking at an app shell since slide 1, actually. And here we have the CD example that I've mentioned, where we have our app shell, we have our environment that it has a micro app inside of it. So this here is a different app. It doesn't live on the app shell project. It's just injected by app shell. And well, as we talked about before, green buttons are not good, right? So we can just change this to a blue button, and then I think our users are going to be happier. So let's do this right now so you can see how simple it is. So here I have a VS Code kind of, it's basically just on the Git repository for this project, for this little project here. And I am going to do what we do. So I'm going to start the repository just to see something, start the project, sorry, just to see how it looks like. And then boom, it's basically just a little dumb app, right? You see, it knows nothing about app shell. It knows nothing about the environments, the surroundings. It's just an app. And now that I have to change the button from green to blue, what I would naturally do is that, well, I go to the project right here. Let's see the sidebar. It's such a simple project. It's quite silly. Where can I find this button? You know, you do the research. Again, think of the puzzle pieces there. Like now I'm not looking at the entire presentation. I'm looking just at this little micro app. So it's just easier to navigate around. So now, yeah, okay, it starts here. I call this entry components, which is components. Here, yep, surprise, there's a button here, and the background is green, so I'm going to change it to blue, and I am going to make it, I don't know, yeah, I think blue will be enough to see the difference. Yes, and I'm going to put a little emoji here just because I'm feeling like it. I'm going to put a little party emoji right here. Without the ARIA tags, I'm sorry, but just for the demo's sake here. So I have that. And then we have our new version of the app right here, right? Cool. So now if I want to deploy this, let me just run npm run lint, just to see if it's linting correctly, because maybe it's going to complain about the emoji that I just decided to put here. No, it's all fine. So now I changed the button color to blue. I've added this little emoji here, and I'm working on my micro app. So now it's good. Let's just commit my changes. So, well, update code. Here I have a commit message. I just update code, and then I'm just going to push my changes to the repository. As simple as that. I just pushed my changes. Perfect. Now what's going to happen is that let me just go back here. Sorry. I also have another tab here open, which is this Azure DevOps. So here we have this XT Summit project that's basically responsible for doing all the CI and CD pipeline integration with these projects, with the micro apps. So I've created this little thing here, which actually has one like from myself. Of course, I'm super cheap. So if I go here, check the pipelines, you will see that there's something running, which is basically the app that we actually did. And then spoiler alert, if you see, there are a bunch of micro apps that we're going to walk through, including the world's most boring app, but we're going to go to it. So basically our app is building right now. Again, the app with the blue button. I'm going to click on it. It's just a standard pipeline. There's nothing, no mysteries to it. It's just now npm installing. It's going to run the linter, testing, building, and yeah, and that's it. And what I want you to notice are actually two things. I built this a lot of times, so you're going to see that it takes like 50 seconds, 43 seconds, 48 seconds, 45 seconds. It takes super, it's funny, like the lifetime, it takes more. But anyways, but you see the point. It's super fast to build, and the reason is because it's really isolated. So even if we were talking about a huge environment or app shell, the app would still be built very fast because it's really isolated. It only cares about itself. So it built, right? So we have it built here. And also notice how I'm very creative when it comes to commit messages. Just update code, update dependencies. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Let's see the releases right now. And now in the releases tab, what's going to happen is that this app shell app is going to be released. I think it was even released already. I'm not even sure if that version here was released. Yeah, I think it sounds about, let me just, yeah, that was, see the last release, it was just released. Well, let's check for real. If I go back to my application here, and now if I refresh my page, and again, this is just a domain, matheuslustosa.com, and I'm using this domain because I have it. I didn't want to buy another domain, but here's my domain. If I refresh the page right now, look at what happened. This just like, it just swapped. There's a new app here. And I didn't change anything on the presentation app shell. You know, the app is just magically here. And actually, this kind of thing would, as we showed before, you can have multiple apps. This would be like an horizontal split, but you could also have a vertical split where we have multiple apps here. We have a React app, we have a Vue app, we have a Preact app, and we have an Elm app. But for the last time, that's not what Micro-frontend is about, having apps with different frameworks, next to each other. But I had to put it here because that's basically on every Micro-frontend demo. So like the Micro-frontend police would be very mad if I didn't do it. So we have it here, but that's not what Micro-frontend is about. But I know what you might be thinking right now. That's kind of cool. Yeah, but this app is not the nicest app. It's like it's just a single line, like it's just text block with a button. Actually, you keep saying that the app shell, the Micro-frontend apps are isolated, but I was expecting that the apps would have to talk to each other because, if my apps are so isolated that they cannot even talk to each other, it's not going to work. It's just dull, because my app, the app shell, my whole product is very dynamic. But don't worry, actually there's a way for the apps to talk to each other, and I'm going to show right now. It's what we call actually a publish-subscribe messaging pattern. One of the ways, at least, the way that I'm going to show right now, which basically, it's also referred to as a PubSubsystem. So basically what happens is that you have app 1, and then app 1 just publishes a message. It just dispatches something just saying like, I added a user, for example. User added, payload Matheus. That's what app 1 just says. And then app 2, if it's interested on that message, is going to be listening or subscribing to that channel. And then whenever a message of a type user added comes, it's just going to check it and it's going to react upon it. And that's it. So basically, it's very decoupled. The apps are still in isolation in the sense that they are not coupled to each other, but they are listening, like they're like listening to the events, they are sending events, so they're just talking to each other in a very decoupled way. And one thing that also happens is that we have this communication by fire and forget. How does it work? So basically, the app just fires a message. It just says, I did something, and forgets about it. It's not like I fire a message and then I wait for some other app to fire something back to me. I just forget about it. It's somewhat like an async task. And then when I get a message that I'm interested on, I can react upon that. I know it's a little bit confusing, but I'm going to show in a little detail. And then last but not least here, when app shell is actually creating an app, a micro app, like the navigator app, for example, here, it basically calls the mount function of that app, and it provides some parameters to it, like a subscribe function, like a dispatch function, and like a custom function. A custom could be anything. So basically, Navigator could then just call subscribe whenever it wants to subscribe to something or react on something, and just calls dispatch whenever you want to send something, and just calls whatever you want to pass to it, maybe a user, like a logged user that you want to share between all the apps, whatever you want to do, you can just do it. And actually, Navigator app is an app on itself. So if I click here, you see that's an app, that's a micro front end as well. That's a micro app right here. So it's a little bit more complex. And as you can see, if I go to slide 11, this app knows that we are on slide 11. And why? Because it asked app shell. Can you please just tell me which slide I'm currently on? So it asked app shell. So, and also this app, this Navigator app, can change the state of, can send messages to the app shell app as well. So if I click on slide 10, for example, here, what's going to happen is that the Navigator app will send this fire and forget message. It's just going to say, app shell, I want to go to slide 10. Do your thing, and just let me know when it's done. And then when I click here, you see that we went to slide 10, the URL changed to slide 10. And then if I click here, again, you will see that now we have actually the check mark on slide 10. And there's a little timer running, which shows actually that I was massively over time on slide 11. But anyways, no problems. So, and then let me show something cool. Actually, this slider app here, I can also click here to toggle what I've called a developer's mode. And I will need 10 seconds for that. So I click here, and let's watch this GIF together. So there's this guy, this like mind-blown guy. It's super fun. So he's like, what? Like, what? It's like, really cool. See? Now, yeah, that's perfect. So now we have a developer mode. When I click on the dev mode, actually now app shell is highlighting all the apps that were embedded into it. So now it's just easier for us to navigate and to see, like I told before, this is an app, these are all embedded apps, and heck, even this here itself is an app embedded as well. And then if I click the show me the dev page, we actually have a developer's secret URL here. The secret URL, do not share or you will be fired. Here, that's it's a React thing, which in itself is an app shell. Oh, sorry, it's a micro app. And it basically logs every single message that happened. It just basically gets this from app shell. And let me show something cool. If I click here, for example, like I clicked, it opened, and then I clicked again, it closed. Look at here. Now we have two actions, like the OS, which is app shell, triggered this action, and now the OS triggered this action. Cool, two messages. If I click here again, let's do something different. And then now I click here to deactivate dev mode. I click here, and then I click here again on the little down arrow. Look at what happened. So we've clicked on the OS, sent a message saying open slides navigation one more time. And now the app itself sent a message saying OS, just set this is dev mode enabled, please. And then it forgot about it, just sent a message. Now the OS itself sent a message saying, okay, cool, I did my work. If you want to do something with the information that you have, just do it. I just did my work. And also, because I'm the environment, I rule here, I also chose that I'm gonna close the slides navigation because I can do it. So again, when I click here to go to a slide, for example, it also does the same. So I click to go to slide 3, and then let's just click here again and here again to see the messages. You'll see that the navigator app just said, yeah, just please, right here, the here, the navigator app just said, hey, please, app shell, I'm gonna send this message here, go to slide 3, and then app shell does something which I'm going to talk about later. And then now app shell says, okay, I'm going to close this slides navigation because I can. And then it sets the slides number to 3. And then basically the other app just puts that tick mark here. And then now we have 2 more topics. I want to talk about how do you deal with state, because that's a very important part as well. And as you can see here, we have another app because that's what we do here. Let's just actually hide this right here. How do we deal with states? So basically, you have the micro apps, in this case, my app 1, app 2, and app 3. And then you have the bigger app, the app shell. App shell has its own state. The micro apps, they also have their own state, and then it's internal. And app shell does not know about the state of the micro apps. The micro apps doesn't know about the state of the app shell unless app shell tells something like, this information you can grab from me if you just provide me a flag that you need it. I'm gonna honor this request, and then I send it to you in the moment that I create you. But then a question can come to your head. So if app shell doesn't know about the state of the micro apps, if I type something here like Matheus Lustosa, my name, leave this because I left the page. So app shell actually unmounted that component entirely, the micro app. So when I go back to it, because it doesn't know about the state, it's actually going to lose the state, right? Wrong, because I kind of lied. App shell doesn't know about the format of the state. So when the app is unmounted, it has the option to pass the latest known states to app shell. So app shell can just keep this information. And then next time that app shell calls this app, it can basically just give this information back to the app, and then the app just do whatever it wants to do with it. Let's see it here. So if I go to the dev page again, somewhere here, we have the world's most boring app. Where is it? Oh, it's like, oh, just a second. Yeah, here we load the manifests, and then here we say, here. So the OS got a message saying, hey, set the app latest known state. This is the app name, and this is the state. So then next time the app shell just loaded this app, it just injects the state there again. And that's it. And then when it comes to the natural question, which is the bundle sizes must be huge. Like, what do we do with performance now that we have so many apps? Well, first of all, actually, that's a very good question. And it's complicated. I would like to talk more about this maybe if I have a session later, but it's complicated because actually this is a session on its own. But the thing is that if you try to make everything shared, so then the bundle sizes are smaller, you kind of go back to the same problem when you have the monolith, where because everything is shared, now if you want to update something, you can't because it might break everything, you know, because they're shared. But on the other hand, if you try to make everything bundled in, so everything independent, although you can be faster delivering stuff, you will just end up having a big bundle size because you just bundle everything in. So this is a discussion on its own that I want to talk about maybe in a future round because we're running out of time. But one thing that we can do to mitigate the performance issue is just some smart caching. And because this is live, let's just do let's see the browser tab here, like the DevTools, and let's go to this slide, for example, right here, this one. If I refresh, you can see it here, and let's just filter by JS, so just the JS stuff, and you will see that all these apps, everything that was loaded actually came from cache. Actually, what we've loaded for this entire request so far was of JS was 136 bytes, not even or 4 kilobytes, and then 136 gzip. That's what we loaded so far. The rest, all this big stuff here, is just the images that I didn't bother even making them smaller. So there are ways that we can think of to increase the performance. But then less slides, I promise. How do we link that with DBT? I hope that you can now understand that the apps, they are very independent from each other, and they can be very dynamic if you want to. Now that we have those independent apps that can be released independently, we have it's called a squad, where it's basically a team that is very autonomous. So it's very motivated as well, cross-functional, self-organized, and basically the goal of the team is just to achieve the product mission. And then because we have different teams who are loosely coupled, this kind of scenario really drives innovation, because then the teams now can test different approaches, although following the product vision. And although the teams are loosely coupled, they have to be tightly aligned, because now we are independent, but we rely on something bigger. So we need to be very aligned. And usually we also have a very experienced end-to-end squad, which takes care of the app shell, for example, and which takes care of the end-to-end testing as well, or the integration. And this is pretty much agile in a nutshell, right? So basically you have those very independent teams, you have very fast release times, you are reacting to the market very fast. You're not afraid of deployment, because deployment is part of your working routine, and you actually learn by doing a lot as well. You have your hypotheses, and you want to test them as quickly as possible. And the end is that we have super motivated teams, because actually they kind of get to choose how they're going to approach the problems, although they have to follow some sort of pattern, but they are more free. So they get to experiment more. And that's it. So today we just learned about what app shell is, and Micro-frontend is as well. We also learned about how this relates to DBT. It was short because I had to rush in the last 2 minutes. But yes, I hope you liked this session. And if you have any questions, just come on, just reach out to me. Don't be shy. There's really no stupid question. Just, yeah, that's it. I'll be on the lounge area. I'll be on the table if you want to ask something. And that's it. I hope you actually are still here. Thank you all. Thank you very much.